Hello and welcome to the TonePedia Guitar Summit 2020 booth. These workshops are sponsored by B&G Guitars. Hi everyone, welcome to TonePedia Interviews B&G Guitars. I've got Ignazio with me from B&G, and today we're going to be talking about what makes the private builds and the Crossroads guitars different, a little bit of history about B&G, and we're going to give you the opportunity to win a Crossroads guitar. What we're going to do is ask you some questions at the end, which will be spoken about during the interview, so pay attention. And we're going to move straight on to Ignazio. And hello, my friend. Could you tell me?
Hello.
Could you tell me a little bit about B&G Guitars?
Sure. Just a little bit of very brief history about the company. It's a very small company. It's more a workshop than a factory, and it's just about 5 years old. The guys started as a repair shop and a restore facility for vintage and pre-war guitars especially. And by doing this, they had their hands on a number of pre-war acoustic parlors. And they kind of fell in love with the concept of such a small intimate guitar that's also capable of, entertaining a whole audience. It's not just for yourself, but it's a guitar that was giving the soundtrack to a community. So the basic idea was to try and bring the concept of the acoustic parlors to the electric world, adding all those components that allow a guitar to be played on stage. So more reliability, good working pickup systems, specifically voiced for those genres that are loved by those guitars. So that's how the original Little Sister concept came out. And the Little Sister concept was started as a private build instrument. What does private build means? Means obviously done by hand, one at a time, but it also means individually specified by the customer. Yeah. So you can choose almost everything, but we will talk about that in details later.
So yeah, you mentioned the private builds. You've also got the Crossroads and the new range, which is the standard builds. Can you tell me a little bit about the difference? Because it's something everyone wants to know, whether it's the press, whether it's the fans, whether it's the dealers. Everyone wants to know. So what was it that you really aimed at when you guys were creating the Crossroads, for instance?
Well, the aim was to bring the same experience of playing a private build to a wider audience, making it more affordable. So we kind of went in two different steps. The standard build is a distillate of all the features of the private build in a more standardized fashion, selecting the most popular options and finishes and versions. That became the standard build. The Crossroads is one more level, and it's obviously is not manufactured in the same workshop. It had to be manufactured offshore to contain the price to the level we wanted. But we worked really hard to preserve the magic, to retain the feel, to retain the playing experience true to the original, but being able to offer it to a wider audience. So private build and standard builds are made in Israel in the workshop. The Crossroads are made in a workshop in China, but you can actually feel the continuity between the three of them. It's the same experience.
Yeah, a lot of companies do these sort of ranges where they have their cheaper guitars, which come to a couple of £100, and then all the way up to guitars which are someone who doesn't know the difference will look at them and think they're the same guitar, but one costs a couple of hundred, one costs several thousand.
Yeah, obviously our range is narrower because you still have to remember that B&G is not like a giant world company. We may output one guitar every 1,000 made by other companies. So, our economy scale is completely different. So you really need to, if you want to compare a private build, you really need to compare with like master build instruments in the Fender world, if you want, or collector's choice instruments in the Gibson world, not really with factory ones, because that's not what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that B&G are only going to build around 150 to 200 instruments in 2020.
Oh yeah.
That is private build in the strictest meaning, really, isn't it? But what about the standard builds?
Well, standard builds is a relatively new idea. It's being launched as we speak. What we have done is we looked back to our history, and we output about 1,000 private build instruments in our history, which is actually remarkable because for such a small company. And we figured out a common trends and most often requested options and features and colors. So we crystallized 5 models which represent the 5 most often requested versions of the private build. By doing this, we are able to streamline the manufacturing process to make it faster, make it quicker, and this optimization in the manufacturing reflects in a more affordable price point. There's no cutting corners by any means in the quality. The wood is the same, the people making the guitar is the same, the finish is the same. There's by no means is an inferior guitar. It's just that by doing them with literally no options other than those 5 different versions, we just make it more efficiently, and this saves us a lot of cost that we are happy to give back to the customer. That's the whole idea.
It makes a lot of sense. Like we said, most companies have a standard range. We all know of the Stratocaster standard and the Les Paul standard and these sort of things, and it makes a lot of sense. If you want something that's going to be extremely high quality, but there's a chance that someone else might have exactly the same guitar, do you really care about that? It's about what you've got, isn't it? Not like does someone else have the same thing? How many companies offer just private builds? Not very many.
No, not very many at all. Again, every private build is individually specified up to the point that you have the opportunity to select your own maple top among those available. You can specify the neck profile, you can specify the nut width, you can specify if you want the pickups wax potted or unpotted. So there's an enormous amount of options that if you're really into that, you have to go for a private build because nobody else will be able to deliver you a guitar exactly like you wanted. If you're happy with the quality and you're happy with, the standard features of the standard builds, you just take one and you will save a lot of time in the waiting list and you will save a lot of money. So why not?
Makes a lot of sense. It's similar to the Crossroads method where, you have a range as a such, but it's just one of the Israeli ones, isn't it? So tell me a little bit more about the Crossroads then.
Yeah. The Crossroads is the logical next step, We felt the pressure from the market for a more affordable version, and there was literally no way we could do it in Israel. So we found a small specialized workshop in mainland China, located in an area where there is a long history of woodwork for musical instruments. It is an area that's very famous for cellos and violins and classical instruments. So they know how to work with high quality wood and they know how to work with hollow body instruments. So it wasn't that difficult to train them to what we wanted. And all the woods, all the materials are not local sourced. we make sure that the wood are imported from the sources all over the world to the factory. So we have African mahogany, we have Canadian maple or American maple, we have Royal Mexican ebony, also known as catalogs for the fingerboard. So all of the components are brought in there and are worked in place. We have a very efficient quality control and quality assurance procedure. So everything just felt in place. And when we had our first Crossroads in the hands, it was very, very close to the true original concept. The feeling we had, it was the same. We were absolutely pleased with the outcome, and the reaction from the market has been incredible. It's no. There's a lot of people who says, well, for a Chinese guitar, it's a lot of money. But when you get actually your hands on that objection is gone.
Yeah, I know firsthand what you're talking about there. So can you explain to me more of the details of like the streamlining process in order to reduce the costs?
Yeah, I give you the perfect example, which is the painting process. Let's assume you have an order for a black guitar. So you set up the whole painting booth for the black guitar and you spray the guitar black. The next guitar in line is maybe a clear transparent or a sunburst. So you need to clean the whole thing. You need to clean all the tubes that bring the black nitro into the spraying guns. You need to clean the spraying guns. You need to have everything dried and start the process all over again. It's almost like one day of break in the finishing process to be prepared for the next one. The cost of this in terms of economy scale is just incredible. So on the other hand, if you prepare the spraying booth for painting 6 identical guitars one after the other, you're gaining probably like 2 or 3 days in the finishing process. And everything is like that. If all the guitars come with the same neck profile, you have a certain flow. If every guitar is different, that flow is interrupted. The nut width is another example. So by cutting options, you increase the efficiency. And we did it for the standard build, and we did it furthermore for the Crossroads in order to make the best guitar available at the price we wanted. So that's the whole idea of streamlining.
See, I know people being people. They'll hear a company talking about, our Chinese-made guitars are just as good as our hand-built ones and these sort of things, and there'll be a lot of doubters. But I'd like to tell you this. So the first time I ever played a B&G, I sat down with it, and a friend said to me, you've got to try this. So I've bought it, have a go. And I sat there and planning to play it for maybe 5 minutes or something and say, oh yeah, it's nice or whatever. And about half an hour, 45 minutes later, I was still playing it. And it was so lovely. And to start with, it wasn't even plugged in. It was just so resonant, and it's just had this it was a nice blend between the acoustic sound of it, but you know when a guitar's good when it sounds good before you even plug it in. And then he turned around to me and said, yeah, and that's one of the Crossroads. And I couldn't believe it. Since then, I've gone on. I've played some of the private builds when we were at Germany last year, and they were absolutely lovely. They are amazing. I just simply couldn't believe the quality of this, because there's a stigma around Chinese-made guitars, and there has been. I don't think there always will be, because a lot of companies are making guitars out there to a really high quality. And I think top of them is B&G. Yeah,
I mean, to be perfectly honest, in China you can find everything. You can obviously buy the cheapest guitar that could possibly exist, but honestly, there's no limit to what you can actually ask them to manufacture. So it's really up to the customer of the factory. If you want a high quality guitar, they are now perfectly capable of delivering it. Just because of the nature of the country, this happens to be more affordable than in other parts of the world. But the stigma is something that is fading out, fading away, because there's no good reason for manufacturing a bad guitar unless that's what the customer orders to the factory.
Yeah, and I think you guys producing an instrument of such high quality over there helps that stigma to bugger off, basically.
Oh yeah,
it's a great one.
Yeah.
So, can you put it in the simplest terms for me? What is the difference between the private build and the Crossroads?
Yeah. Once again, it's not about the country of origin. It's like the materials are slightly different, but they belong to the same category. So the private build is built in a way that is the antithesis of economy, scale, and efficiency. It's one guitar at a time, is made with a painting process that takes weeks, literally, not 1 week, but more weeks to be cured. The pickups are wound by hand in the factory, and again, you can specify if you want them potted or unpotted, and each of these steps it creates one more issue to deal with. And then the customer can select the top, can even color match the finish to a sample of paint he can send to the factory. So it's like ridiculously private build to the extreme, What we have done with the Crossroads is we had to transfer this in a manner that is industrial acceptances. So can we do nitro? No, we can't. So what's the best alternative to nitro is UV polyester finish. A nitro finish takes weeks, as I said, to be dried out and cured. A UV cured finish takes literally seconds in the right oven, So it's the thinnest industrial finish available today. It's the only industrial finish that allows the wood to resonate the most. It's almost as good as nitro, but only a fraction of the cost, more efficient. As I said, the tone woods are imported, and it's African mahogany, is American maple, it's catalogs or royal Mexican ebony for the fingerboard. We don't use East Indian rosewood for the Crossroads just because the regulations to use East Indian rosewood are becoming too stringent. Even the bridge, the jack plate and the tailpiece are hand casted in Israel for the private build, and they are industrial casted in China for the Crossroads, but still, they are not off-the-shelf parts. So as you can see, we are trying to deliver the same uniqueness, but just in a more affordable fashion. We don't buy an off-the-shelf bridge. We have a specific bridge with a specific alloy made of brass and zinc instead of the usual Zama, which is used by all tunomatics worldwide. That's what we are doing.
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If I was a complete stranger to the guitar world, there was a Crossroads in front of me and there was a private build in front of me and they were same colour, same woods to look at, how would I tell the difference?
The easiest thing is looking at the dots at the 12th fret.
Okay.
If they are wide spaced, close to the edge of the fretboard, that's a private build. If they are more spaced towards the center, that's a Crossroads, like in the black Crossroads that's in the background. That's the easiest and most recognizable sign of the origin of the instrument. You know, it's a small little secret between you and us and a couple of thousand people watching this.
So they're that damn close that you have to put the dots in different places for you guys to even tell.
Kind of.
Oh man, that's great. That's really cool. Okay, so look, we're astounded by the Little Sisters. We've seen. We absolutely love them. On TonePedia, we've got 13 guitars, including the Goldfingers, the Little Sisters. We've even got a bass, so that's 14 guitars in total. But there's more coming, isn't there, from the Crossroads range? So do you want to divulge a little secret to us?
Well, yeah, I will unveil a little secret, as we are very, very close to the final pre-production run of the Crossroads stepsister.
Which is a solid body, isn't it? Well, not solid body, but it's not got the F holes.
Well, it actually has. The steps. This is a stepsister private build. So the difference between a little sister and a stepsister is the body is slightly shorter, so joins the neck here instead of here at the 16th fret instead of the 14th fret. So you have more neck exposed, has 22 frets instead of 20, and has a solid headstock instead of the slotted headstock. So these are the key difference between a stepsister and a little sister. So we will have a small range of Crossroads stepsister. I think initially will be just maybe 2 versions, but this will allow the guys who need higher access to the frets and more into the rock fusion kind of playing instead of the more traditional blues, clean roots kind of playing. And they will be, I think we will be able to launch the stepsister Crossroads in the February 2021.
Oh, that's super exciting, because they, that's more up my sort of street in terms of being able to get up the fretboard and these sort of things. It's
well, it's to each his own. My favorite little sister is probably the Cedar of Lebanon, non-cutaway. So it means basically no access over the 14th fret. It's everybody's a different player. That's why the guitar world is so fascinating, because there's
like you said, there's no money above the 5th fret, don't they?
Well, I can get up to the 7th.
Okay, so there's lots of treats cooking in the kitchen. That's great. If you don't mind, let's take a step back to the little sister and the stepsister.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the pickups aren't the same as in the private build, but they are wound to your specification.
Yes, the Crossroads pickups are wound to our specification. We went to the factory and we brought our pickups with us, and we showed them how we want the winding to be wrapped around the bobbins, and we show them how much we want them scattered to have a specific character in the mid-range. We made sure they will be using the same Alnico alloy that we are using in the private builds. We only went for a slightly different approach. So the same character, but the Crossroads pickups are wound a little hotter, so to have a little bit more of output, to hit the front hand of the amplifiers a little bit harder. And we decided we want all of the Crossroads pickups to be wax spotted to avoid, squealing or excessive feedback with higher gain application. So They are different, of course they are, but in a good way. We offer the option to upgrade to the private build pickups, but it really depends on the genre you're playing. If you're playing mostly cleans or low gain, you're happy with both. Maybe the private build will be slightly more fresh, more open, with a little bit more of air. But if you're playing more rock style, you're playing with gain and with pedals and overdrives, we will recommend you to stay with the Crossroads pickups because they will fit your style better. So it's again different, not necessarily increasingly better. Let's put it.
Yeah, I'd say probably about 80-90% of pickups on the market are wax potted already, and it just goes to show you, that is generally the way to go. Because a lot of people like to add a little bit of gain on, but there is something to said about, because an unpotted pot does have a very different characteristic.
Yeah, it's more microphonic, and that can be an issue if you're playing very loud and very gainy. But on the other hand, being more microphonic, it will transfer most of the acoustic characteristic of the guitar. So it will not only pick the string vibration, but it will pick the entire vibration of the body. That's the reason why the private build pickups are born as non-potted.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, look, it's been a great interview. Thank you for telling us more about some of these secrets of B&G. I think we should tell our viewers how they can win a B&G Crossroads.
Well, they need to answer these two questions. And one question is, how do you tell at first glance a Crossroads and a private build apart from each other? And we have been saying this. And the next question is, what's the next Crossroads model coming out in the next months?
But those are the questions, so you're going to have to rewind now and go over us again. So, look, it's been lovely to have you all here. Ignazio, thank you very much for joining me again, man.
It's always a pleasure talking to you guys, and spreading the news, spreading the knowledge. It's always a good thing.
Excellent. Well, enjoy the Guitar Summit, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.